Hey y'all, welcome back to another video for No Melanin. Today we are talking about the social life of albinos, PWAs. What is it like for us socially outside of our families, and even sometimes within our families? We can talk about that too, but mostly social life outside of our families. What is it like? I'm going to talk about it. Let's do it. I got this from the National Organization for Albinism and Hypopigmentation, and it says people with albinism are at risk of isolation because the condition is often misunderstood. Social stigmatization can occur, especially within communities of color, where the race or paternity of a person with albinism may be questioned. Families and schools must make an effort to include children with albinism in group activities. Contact with others with albinism or who have albinism in their families or communities is most helpful. NOAA can provide the names of contacts in many regions of the country. So let's unpack this line by line. The first thing that they said is that people with albinism are at risk of isolation because the condition is often misunderstood. For various reasons, it can be due to a lot of the myths that we discussed in a couple videos ago. If you haven't already, go check that video out. But it can be because of that. It can also be because of just preconceived ideas that people have. It can be because people just choose not to like you or like us because of the way that we look. It can be a number of different things, which is why they started out, I feel like, with saying that we are at risk of being isolated. And they have to write this because although there are many within the albinism community who haven't had to face this, there are so many of us who have. And because of the great amount of us who've experienced this, they had to write it here as a way to let parents know, guardians know. You have a lot of people who feel like out of sight, out of mind, but these are things that have to be understood when you are a new parent, having a child with albinism. Maybe they're small growing up. You may have a child or you have several children. And these kinds of things can be something that needs to be looked into when you're talking about the social life for your child, whether it's in your family or outside of your family. Preparing yourself for that can be easier said than done, because even when you try to make sure you do all the right things, your child can still hit a brick wall where they have to face being isolated because of the way that they are, being an albino or a person with albinism. So my encouragement here is just to encourage you to build up your child as best you can, or if you yourself are an albino or PWA, I have been there and I know what it's like to be isolated because of nothing else than the fact that you are an albino, and to feel as though no one likes you because of that, and to be told that in so many words. And it's not easy when you're sitting there in it. And one of the things that I always remind myself of is that it all works together for my good in the end. Isolation can be tricky because a lot of times we picture isolation as, oh, I'm by myself. Like right now, I'm sitting alone. I'm by myself. I'm in an isolated area. But also sometimes isolation can be when you're around a group of people. You can have 20, 50, 40 people around you and still be isolated. People can still not see you. You can be going out with a gang of people this weekend, but be isolated because they don't see you, because of the way that they treat you. If they don't value you as a person, if they say insulting things to you, if they belittle you, if they demean you in any type of way, they are isolating you. They're not really bringing you in to be with you because of who you are, but it's based off of other things. Maybe it's because they can pick on you, or you allow them to do things, to cross boundaries and do other things that otherwise someone else wouldn't allow them to do. So isolation can work on both ends of the spectrum. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and that is why I'm able to sit here and say that this is very real, very true. But at the same time, when you begin to unpack and understand who you are and know who you are, especially I would say as you get older, when you're a child, it's a little bit harder because you really can't control the environment that you're in. That has more to do with your parents or your guardians. But as you get older and you're able to kind of take your life into your own hands, so to speak, as far as your environment and where you're going is concerned, you begin to make changes and additions to what you want. Whatever you don't want, you subtract it. Whatever you want to keep, you add to it, you supplement it, but it's just based off of you and ultimately where God wants you to be. So this is something, like I said, that's very true. It's something that we have to talk about. It's something that happens. The second part that they said is that social stigmatization can occur, especially within communities of color where the race or paternity of a person with albinism may be questioned. This is funny because I saw a reel on IG a couple months back. It was like it was a voiceover. This person had done a voiceover of the scene in Tarzan, that the animated film that Disney did, I think in the late 90s, when the gorilla had taken in, when Tarzan was a baby and she was holding him. The voiceover was making it be that the male gorilla didn't like the baby because he was like, why are you bringing this white baby home? This ain't my baby because this baby ain't colored like me. That's a white baby. And she was like, he might be an albino, you know, we might have that in our family. And I was like, oh my gosh, people just come up with some of the craziest stuff. But that actually is a good picture or depiction of, in a more comedic matter, but it's a good depiction of what it really can be within communities of color, whether you come from an Indian family or an African family, African American family, whatever the community of color is for you. It can be hard because of the fact that we are so fair-skinned, and most people within our community are not. They are melanated, deeply melanated. They have some form of melanin, but we don't have barely any. Some of us produce a little bit, but then there are others of us who don't produce any at all. And so when they said that about the paternity and questioning just overall, what is this baby? What child is this? But it's in a negative form, that can be another way that the child is restricted socially. Because you would have family members who, I don't want to be around that baby, and you know, they just, that might not be my baby, that's not my brother's baby, or that's not my sister's baby, or, you know, it can be a multitude of things that can really affect the person as well as the child that they have. And if it gets into their head to where they're now looking at their child like, oh man, I did something wrong, my family might be right, or the people around me might be right, it can cause those families to really have a divide there. Because if you're feeling embarrassed because your child doesn't have melanin and because they get talked about, it'll make you open up a door. You may not mean to do it, but it will make you open up a door where people will feel they have permission to make comments about your child, to say things to your child, against your child, to you in your presence while your child is there. And you won't say anything because you feel like in a way they're right because of the way that your child looks, because you didn't produce what is socially acceptable for the community that you're in. And again, it's not saying that you mean to do it intentionally. Sometimes it can be intentional, but it's not saying that for everyone it's intentional. A lot of times for the parents, it takes a lot to unpack that your child is so different, especially when it comes to communities of color, because if we all had fair skin, you probably would say to yourself, it would be a little bit easier. But if everyone doesn't, every time I walk out, especially if you live in the area where most of your community lives, the stares, the looks, the comments, that's your baby, or are you sure that's your child? Or, you know, even if they don't say it, just the treatment of it, it can make you feel some type of way. If you're not secure with what you have with your child, it can make you be insecure, and you can pass that insecurity down to your child, and it can create a multitude of issues in the long run because it's just an unhealthy pattern. That is why it's important to really sit down and unpack this for yourself as the parent or guardian, and then help your child unpack it as well. Let your family members know, your village know, those who may come up to you and try to question the fraternity or the likelihood of your child being yours. Don't allow them to feel like they have that window. And what's the other word that they said? The race or fraternity. Yeah. Are they black? Are you sure they're black? Don't allow them to come up to you and make those types of statements. If it's a jestful comment, like, I don't know what you would think of it as being, because only you know, but if you feel as though the person is just joking, or it's just, you know, they don't mean any harm, I suppose. But again, I can't say what you would view that as, but overall, a lot of times these jokes and, oh, I'm just playing is really rooted in, no, I'm serious, but I don't want you to know I'm serious, so I'm just going to say it like I'm playing or I'm joking. But I'm really for real about it. I don't consider them to be black, or I don't consider them to be Indian, or I don't consider them to be Arabic because they don't look like they are. They look different. They look this. It can do more harm than good if you don't control it. For my sisters and I, yes, 100%. And I was homeschooled. We were homeschooled. We didn't even go to school. And it was just always hit from both sides of the token when it came to that, whether we were in the grocery store or we were in extracurricular activities outside of school, whether we were at church or amongst other family members. A lot of this is what we face. You feel that isolation. Again, you can be around a number of people. Y'all can be talking. It's isolation. You cannot be talking. It's isolation. You can just, it has a lot to do, and it's almost like this wall, this invisible wall is put up where it's like, yeah, you're over here, but you're not with us. And it's very other oriented where, okay, you're here, but we're not going to hang with you. We're not going to do nothing with you because we don't consider you to be. So it can really inhibit you being able to move around socially or do things socially, because who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to be with when the people you around, they only have this level that they allow you to go to with them, and then they restrict you in other areas because of the way that you were born. It's not over anything else, but because of that. You are the joke. As I heard someone say, you are the punchline. And it's cool to hang out with you to a certain extent, but when it comes down to really, really doing things or really treating you the way that you should be treated, the crowd gets thin and not too many people are left standing when it comes to that. So it can be hard to understand. It can be hard when you're trying to understand it yourself, because to you, you're like, I'm fine. Why does everybody else have a problem? But so many people can have a problem with it, and they will let you know in no uncertain way. They will let you know. So it's important to just know that as well. And let's move on to the next one. Families and schools must make an effort to include children with albinism in group activities. Do not allow people to hold your child back, or teachers. Y'all can play. They're not going to sit over there by themselves while y'all sit over here and play. You're going to include them. That breaks that mold of being mean or trying to inhibit or restricting because, oh, they're an albino. I don't want to play with them because they're this or they're that. No. Not in my classroom. Not in this family. See, it takes somebody putting their foot down to really end a lot of this. We can sit and make all the YouTube videos we want to make. You can have all the conferences you want to have. You can have all the conversations you want to have, discussions, seats at the table. But if we don't start implementing the things that we are learning and listening to, paying money to go and hear people say over the microphone, over the podium, whether it's Teams, Zoom, whatever, then we are not going to see any real change happen. And that is just all across the board. Anywhere, any way you want to flip it, reverse it, dice it, whatever. You won't see any change until you begin to implement the change that you want to see. We can elect people, we can promote people, we can elevate people, we can do whatever. But if you don't take the information that you hear from them and put it back into the walls, into the corners, into the streets, the sidewalks of your community, nothing will change. It really does take you. It really does. I know that seems kind of cliche to say, but it really does take everybody working together. This cannot be a one-man show or a one-man job. It takes everybody doing their part to ensure that bullying is being stopped, to ensure that discrimination is being stopped, or racism, or whatever you want to say, sexism. It takes everybody doing their part, not just one particular person saying it and doing it. Even for kids that don't have albinism, children who have special needs are often targeted the most and in the worst ways simply because of the way that they are born. They are mistreated on the daily, whether it's in the family, whether it's outside of the family, whether it's at school, wherever it is, often mistreated. And I know people want to act like that's not the case, but it's definitely the case. And these babies deserve better. They deserve more than what they have been given. They deserve to be loved and treated as though they are the very human being that God created them to be. Not anything less, not anything more. Including them in group activities, including in conversations, including in all aspects. If you see somebody that looks like they might be being excluded, include them. Encourage your children to do it. You as an adult do it. Whether you're on the workplace and you might have somebody that you work with who could be an albino or a person with albinism, or doesn't have to be albinism. Just do your part in making sure that you're sharing the love. The last part says contact with others with albinism or who have albinism in their families or communities is most helpful. Now, my family is just me and my sisters, so we got that on lock. We don't have any other family members that I know of who have albinism, but there are others who do. I know some cousins on Facebook who are related and they have it, and that's pretty cool. And then we have this beautiful online community here where we're able to connect with each other. And although we're not like in the same space, we are connected. We got it like that because we're all here together, and that makes it so cool. Because growing up I didn't grow up in the social media age. I grew up in the pre-social media age. So if you didn't see it like right around you, you didn't know of anybody else. So being able to get on social media and connect with people is a beautiful way. And I know that I know several parents actually who have allowed their children to have like Instagrams and profiles like that where they showcase their albinism, and they're able to connect with other people on social media due to it. They monitor the account, but their children are able to connect with other people who are just like them, because in their case, the likelihood, especially when you're talking about being in America, albinism is rare. You don't really see it here. So it helps when you're able to connect and see people who are just like you, and they understand you and all the kinks and things that just make us who we are. It helps when you have people that you can relate to. So even being on social media is a beautiful way for us to connect. I just encourage you to see and open up and gain access, monitor your children's accounts. But if you want to do it, I'm not telling you to let your children be on Facebook. Please don't think I'm saying that, or Instagram, or none of that. Please don't. I'm just saying if you've already decided it, good. But I'm not telling you to do nothing that you have not wanted to do. So I'm not telling you to create it. I'm just saying if you do, please monitor it. But if you don't, hey, they can wait until they get older and they're able to monitor it themselves to get on social media. It's no rush to get on. Trust me, it's no rush. I'm just glad that we have this the way that we have it. These things are what you have to remember and know about when it comes down to the social things that we deal with. I just covered them in a brief synopsis, but it's so many levels to it. I shared a lot of the screenshots of the stories, people with albinism who have talked about how they grew up hard because of the way that people treated them socially, just hard environments, whether they were at school, wherever. It was just really hard for them. And it's a miracle that we are where we are today. And as I said before in the previous video, it's one thing to have it be because of albinism, but when you have a lot of other factors going on, like it was with my family, people will, baby, it's just all across the board. Not only are you an albino, but you also got this, and this. And we're going to talk about all of it. So these are just things that we've gone through, and these are things that we have experienced, but these are things that have made us better in who we are and where God is taking us. Because as I always say, we were created this way on purpose, for a purpose, to do great things. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I hate that I always have to do snippets of these videos, but I don't know. I feel like at the same time, I don't really have to belabor the point, because it doesn't take a lot to really understand what I'm saying, because for so many people, you can recall a time in life where you've heard a story, or you experienced it yourself, or you went to school, or you were around it. So it doesn't really take a lot of explanation and talking and giving so many examples, because I think you get it. This is just something that we talk about, and we will continue to talk about, because I love shedding light on these things, because it is something that needs to be discussed. And it's something that I hope that for albinos and PWAs, you're able to look at this video and say, man, somebody gets it. They're talking about it. These are things that you want to see. These are things that I would have loved to have seen when I was growing up. My lunch break is over, y'all. So it's time for me to get back to work. I will talk to y'all later in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to catch up on all the latest content from No Melanin, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.